What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and today we're going to be doing the full review on my Hoover WindTunnel 3 Pro bagless upright vacuum. Now this particular machine I acquired a little over a month ago, and I've been using it pretty consistently since then. I've actually been using it for a lot of bare floor pickup, I've been using it for a lot on upholstery, and just kind of using it for little odds and ends throughout the house. Now that I bought the Dyson Ball Animal 3, it's pretty much taking over that purpose, and this will soon be sold to someone else who is happy to get it. So, in the meantime, let's answer the question of should you buy this machine. Now, to my knowledge, this machine is not available for sale anymore, but it's one that you'll probably find very frequently refurbished and on the secondhand market, if not also new old stock. So, the question is it a good machine? Well, let's find out in my full review of the Hoover WindTunnel 3 Pro Pet vacuum. Now, starting off with a lot of the basics. The cord features an automatic cord rewind, and it's 27 feet, which is a perfectly acceptable amount of cord. I wish it would have been a little bit longer at 30, maybe 35, but 27 is pretty much the lowest of acceptable range of cord in my opinion. And if you have a smaller home, or if you don't mind having to change plugs frequently, then you could certainly get by with it. Now, since it is a rewind, it's a little bit harder to add an extension cord to it unless you just want to flop it all over the machine, but you always could do that if you run out of cord. The way the cord rewind works is the cord comes out right here on this side, and there's a button right here on this side that you press with your foot, and that pulls in the cord. Now, I've noticed that this cord rewind has gotten very loose over time, and it sometimes doesn't like to pull the cord in all the way, which I'm not a fan of. So the cord rewind on this does not appear to be the best quality, so not a big fan there, but at least it is an option. And as long as it fails with the cord out, then you can just flop the cord on the machine and continue using the machine as normal. So as long as it doesn't get stuck inside the machine, it shouldn't affect the functionality or usability of it, and thankfully I haven't had that problem. So there is that. So the cord is okay on this. Now, whenever you are using it, you do have a cord clip right up here, so you can clip the cord right in this little clip below the handle and keep it out of the way. And beyond that, the cord is just fine. Right here on the bottom, we have our WindTunnel technology. We have a 13-inch cleaning path with a long life belt, and we also have a brush roller shutoff that automatically shuts the brush off when the vacuum is in the upright position, regardless of what position it's on, which is great. So when you're using the tools on this, you don't have to worry about your brush roll spinning and tearing up your carpets. You also have a 5-position height adjustment with a high pile all the way going down to hard floors. When you put it on hard floor, you want to make sure that the brush is turned off with this switch. So you press this button to turn the brush roll on and off, and like I mentioned, it only kicks in when the machine is reclined. So you want to recline the machine before pressing this so it can make your choice, but make sure the machine is off when you're switching this so that way you don't artificially wear out the belt. The brush roller cleans very well. We have WindTunnel technology. It's a little bit of a pain to clean within this WindTunnel, but other than that, it's just fine. If we put the machine down, we can see the base plate is held on by just a few screws, so 5 screws in fact, so it's pretty easy to take off this base plate and change the belt or clean out the brush roller. We have our high adjustment wheels right here, pretty typical. We do have rubber coated wheels on the base, but unfortunately the height adjustment wheels have been overlooked, and these are hard plastic, so I kind of wish that that oversight wasn't there, because that means that while the main wheels won't scratch your floors, the height adjustment wheels could possibly scratch your floors. So you want to be very careful. I wouldn't use this machine on any sort of delicate floors. And while the brush roller shutoff does do a good job at allowing it to pick up debris without scattering, this isn't the best system at picking up bare floors, but it does get the job done if you're only vacuuming up fine debris, and we'll do a pickup test later on in the video. So right up here we have the cyclone, which there's a little gray button right here that we simply push and the entire cyclone pops off. There's a gray button right there that we can push, and that allows us to drop the trapdoor into the trash. This has a twist to unlock mechanism in order to remove the cyclone, and you access the filter by lifting up this gray tab, and you can pull out this filter. So this is a dual cyclonic machine. This filter is washable, so I recommend checking that periodically every time you empty the bin, and making sure that it's clean, and if not, wash it. I always recommend buying a replacement filter so that way you have a spare to put in here whenever the other one is drying. And you have a clean filter indicator right here that lets you know if the filter is dirty or if the machine is clogged. So, and that just goes right back on and clicks into place. Very simple. As far as attachments go, now this machine has every attachment except for the brush, so there would be a brush right here. The brush is the same that I've seen on my Hoover WindTunnel Tempo and a lot of my other T-Series uprights like my older style Elite Rewind. So the brush that this comes with, it does an okay job at upholstery. I prefer to use it for upholstery, but the bristles are not long enough or soft enough for any dusting, so I wouldn't recommend using the dusting brush for dusting, despite what its name insinuates. I'd recommend just using it as an upholstery brush. But the good news is, if you don't want to use it as an upholstery brush, you do have a turbo brush right here, and it actually works pretty well. I expected this to not work very well. Like any turbo brush, it's very loud. I expected these little rubber bristles to not do a good job, but this actually does a great job. Now, of course, it says to not use it on your pets, so it's not a groom tool or anything like that. You only want to use this on your upholstery, but I found that it works very good on upholstery, and it pretty much does the trick. Now, over here, we have our crevice tool in a bright orange, and we have our telescoping extension wand, which we can pull out just like this and lock it into place. It's still not very long even when it's telescoped, but it is nice to have that option, and it twists and locks in place whenever you have it extended and unextended. So still wish there was a bit longer of a reach, but you can buy extra extension wands separately at not too much money, so there is a bit of a trade-off there that you can make. And once you're done with the crevice tool, you can simply slide it back into the extension wand and clip it right onto the side of the machine. Now, as far as accessing the hose is held in right here with a plastic tab button. You just push the button and the hose pops out. So this hose is a pretty decent length. It's perfectly fine as far as getting in, getting on your upholstery and getting up high. It actually stretches a pretty fair big amount, and it can stretch a little bit further. So if you want to use this to get up with the extended extension wand to get up into your corners and stuff, it'll do all that just fine. Now, as far as stairs go, it won't quite get all the way up your staircase, but if you have a landing in between your stairs, if you have, let's say, 13 or 14 steps, it's not going to get all the way up, but if you have 10, it might just barely get all the way up. You might have to get the last few with the vacuum at the top, but just be careful not to drop it. Or if you have a landing in between both of your sets of stairs, let's say you have like maybe 7 steps and then a landing, then another 7, then this will go up all the way up your steps just fine. So it's not the best in terms of getting up the stairs. Something like a Dyson or a Shark would do better, but it's pretty close, and considering that this hose just neatly fits on the back and has a very efficient air path because everything goes through the hose, it's pretty good. Now, as far as attaching the attachments directly to the hose, this is a standard 1.25" fitting, but because the attachments fit inside it instead of over it, a lot of universal attachments won't fit unless you add them to the end of the extension wand. Once you put the extension wand on, you can fit all sorts of attachments on the end of it, and I'll demonstrate that real quick. So as you can see, any of the attachments that you want to attach will just fit on the inside of the hose, which looks a little silly, but it does work. So that means that a lot of universal attachments won't quite fit on the end of the hose. For example, I have this old Dyson attachment, since this doesn't have a dusting brush, but this doesn't really fit all the way. It's too loose and it won't actually fit on the end of this. But if I attach the extension wand, now the attachment will fit on the end of the extension wand. And you can see I just undid this. So that works. But one thing I've noticed with this extension wand is that when you have this extension wand attached with it not extended, it doesn't like to go on all the way. So I found that basically grabbing this and pulling it out just a little bit and then locking it into place, now this will, well, again, it should fit on there, but the problem is that sometimes this wand doesn't like to lock into place. So overall, the wand and hose experience on this isn't the best, but when you lock this in place, there we go. Now this works pretty good. And now I can put any standard attachments on the end of this wand if I want to. But again, they still don't fit the tightest, but they're good enough to be used. So if you want to add extra attachments to the end of this, you can do that, but you'll have to put them on the end of the wand instead of the end of the hose. If you're just using the attachments that this machine comes with, then you won't have to worry about that. Now this turbo brush actually does work pretty well. It just simply slides on the end of the hose, and it's a little loud, but it does work. So I'll demonstrate this real quick on my couch right over here. So you can see right there. I'll just vacuum this real quick. So that actually works very well, and the hose just clicks right back onto the bottom of it whenever you're done. And the turbo brush actually does work very well, despite the fact that the design is very similar to the one that I used on the Hoover WindTunnel T-Series Tempo, the UH70935. That particular turbo brush had a really weird issue with it where it was very loud and didn't work very well, but this one actually works very well. I don't know if that's just differences in manufacturing, or if that's because this particular turbo brush has the weird rubbery bristles, but it does a great job of picking up pet hair. It grooms the upholstery very well, and doesn't have any issues with slowing down, so that works very nice. And if you ever do have anything jammed in here, it's just 2 screws to pull this apart and get anything out that may be stuck in it. And once you're done, it stores right here on the top of the machine. Alright, so now we're going to do a super quick pickup test. Now, because this machine is not really designed for hard floor pickup, it does have the option to do it. We're only going to be testing this with fine debris, so I tried to vacuum up dog food, cat food, other things with this, and it just doesn't work very well picking those up, at least when it's in the bare floor mode, which is what you need to have it on for it to maintain contact with the floor. Otherwise, it will just not have enough suction to pull anything through. So, but what this will mainly be used for is for picking up fine debris and dust off of bare floors, so that will be tested with these potato flakes. So we're going to leave this on the medium setting just for the sake of consistency to see how... Actually, no, we're not. We're going to change this to hard floor once we get to the carpet and shut off the brush roller as well. So we're going to do carpets, then bare floors. Remember, like I said, you want to turn off the machine prior to shutting off the brush roller. So now we're going to turn off the brush and turn this down to the bare floor mode and continue the other half of this test. Okay, so now we'll look at the results. So looking on the carpet, okay, so we have, now one thing I've noticed is that this machine likes to leave a lot of debris in the breaks where the brush roller is. So where the actual breaks on the brush roller are, which are usually there to protect the cord, where those are, we actually see a lot of ruby. Well, we do see a lot of ruby apparently, but we see a lot of potato flakes where the breaks are in the bristles. So you can see there's actually a good amount of potato flakes on the carpet. Despite the fact that this machine normally does pretty well on carpets, this is not the best showing of it in terms of debris pickup. So a lot of other machines have done significantly better at this, including other Hoovers. So that's a little disappointing. This is actually not very good results on carpet. We have quite a few flakes left behind. And on the bare floors where the transition is, we see a lot of flakes. This is fairly typical in machines. There's not a good seal on this, so you're not going to see a lot of potato flake pickup on the transition. And on the bare floor itself, we see a few very fine flakes. Of course, it's going to get the big flakes, but the small flakes are still on the floor. So it's not the best at debris pickup on either carpets or hard floors. So again, this is mostly designed for deep cleaning carpets, and it does pretty okay at that. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And bare floor performance is more so just there for if you have mostly carpets and maybe a kitchen and a bathroom. For that sort of use case, this would be fine, but for a house that has mostly hard floors or maybe 50-50, this would not be my first choice at a machine. So overall, this machine is okay. It does pretty good at deep cleaning carpets, and I'm sure it would perform well if I was to replace the brush roller, given this machine is a couple years old. So it is a little bit cumbersome, but it weighs about 18 pounds, but I actually find it to not feel as heavy as other machines that weigh about the same. Machines like the Shark Apex and the Dyson Bowl Animal 3 are technically lighter by a pound or two, yet they actually feel heavier in the hand than this machine, both in terms of carrying and especially with the Shark in terms of actually pushing and pulling the machine. Now, this machine isn't too bad when you're pushing and pulling it, but you can feel the extra weight when compared to a lighter weight Hoover. So it's not a lightweight machine, but it's not an overly heavy one either. So it's the kind of thing where it's about average. Most people would be able to lift this and maneuver it no problem, but if you have very sensitive back issues or shoulder issues, something like that, you may want to look into a machine that's a little bit lighter. But overall, it's okay. It's definitely not what I would prefer. I would still prefer to go with the WindTunnel Tempo, because while the Cyclone on this is very effective and it's good if you want a bagless machine, I still feel like bagged is better in this price category, but this is still a somewhat decent option, especially if you want a core rewind, if you want a decent bagless separation system, and you want decent tools with good carpet cleaning performance. So overall, I give it a relatively tepid recommendation. So it's not my first pick, but you could certainly do worse. Anyways, this is Intellitech Studio signing out with my quick review of the Hoover WindTunnel Pro Pet vacuum, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a good one. Peace.